Yes, it is I, your humble host, Bill Hatch III, coming to you live from the palatial home studios of Bald Spots Productions here in the beautiful city of Santa Ana, California, for yet another episode of Why... no, wait. This is not quite after midnight. Oh, goodness. I almost forgot what show I was doing. Joining me,
shows.
as per the usual, in studio is my friend, my brother in Christ, the disembodied voice of Rudy.
Hi, everybody. I love you all. Waka, waka, waka. What the Lord?
And joining us from more than acceptable safe social distances are my guests for today. We have Mr. Allan Misner. How you doing, Allan? Where are you coming from?
I live on a Caribbean island off the coast of Panama called Bocas del Toro. So, yeah, I did what everybody says they're going to do and sell all my stuff and just moved to a Caribbean island. And so that's where my wife and I are now.
Nice. That is awesome. And also, and my other guest for today is William Collier. William, where are you calling from?
Central Texas right now. Home is where the butt is, you know.
Okay, that's where my father went to get his second master's degree. Was from the University of Central Texas. So I know right about the general area where that is.
All my exes are in Texas.
Yeah, but you don't live in Tennessee.
Oh.
So. Trying out a new opening question. What are you gentlemen reading?
Oh, reading.
Don't everybody talk at once.
Most recently, DWI investigations.
DWI investigations. What is that?
It's a manual for how to do driving while intoxicated investigations.
Okay, cool.
I'll drink to that.
No, that's not till Friday.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. That's because it's not 10 o'clock yet. I have my phone set to go to Do Not Disturb at the top of the hour, and we started early.
Both of your guests are early.
Yeah, you got two guys who want to be on time. So yeah.
If you can't be on time, be early.
Well,
so
on
William,
time is late, and
yeah, if you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late, and if you're late, you're forgotten.
Yep, that is for sure. And
Mr. Misner,
yeah,
Misner or
so
Misner?
Misner, yeah. Yeah, but I'm reading a book by Katie Bowman. She's a movement specialist. I'll be interviewing her in a few days. So that's one of the things about my podcast is that I actually read every single book for every guest that I've had on the podcast. So I read roughly about 2 books a week, one for my podcast, one for personal development, or occasionally I'll throw in some fiction there just for fun.
Good.
Well, you got to have some fun sometimes.
All the time.
Fiction is more important than people give it credit for.
Yeah,
it is.
That is for sure. But yeah, I've had a lot of nonfiction authors on the show. A lot of fiction authors on the show now too, and yeah, they have. It's interesting the process people go through to write, to actually produce the material, and the better ones put a lot of thought into it. But so what's your
the better ones? Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
in fact, here's a funny story. When I was in high school, our school didn't have a physics class.
Okay.
But there was a competition statewide for the school to send people up to compete for the best, in each of the different fields of math and science. So they had us take aptitude tests, and I scored highest in the class, highest in school for physics, having never taken a physics exam or any kind of physics class in my life. And so the teacher came to me and said, "We really want you to represent the school for physics." And I told her, I said, "Well, I've never had a physics class." She said, "Well, you did actually pretty good on the exam. How did you do that?" I said, "I read science fiction." And so you're right. Yeah. These authors really sometimes spend that extra time to understand how these things work. and just that it just happened through the books that I had read. I guess, maybe you're not supposed to believe fiction is true, but if an author does their job well, they've learned the reality behind the fiction and are really teaching you without it feeling like you're being taught.
Yeah.
Can I ask you, pardon me, sir, can I ask you what was your science fiction of choice back then?
It would be Asimov, that kind of thing. I did also, of course, you go through Fahrenheit 541 and, all the other different things that were out. I was pretty voracious.
Like Foundation trilogy guy, Heinlein.
I tried to get into Tolkien and just couldn't do it. I tried to get into Dune and just couldn't do it. So there were some that I really struggled with, but I was, if I wasn't practicing a sport and doing something physical outside, I was in my room reading a book. That was pretty much me.
Very good, very good. That's Asimov, and if you're talking Fahrenheit 4, whatever it is, that's good. Good choices, though. Good taste in science fiction.
Every paperback, they had a paperback swap at the library, and I'd literally just go and just every single one that came through, I picked it up and went through and read it and put it back and tried to get another one. So, yeah.
Very good.
Well,
Very good.
I know, rather, television show, not originally a book, but I think Star Trek really set the bar pretty high for that kind of thing in science fiction. Now that people are studying everything from warp theory to what do they call the thing where they that's terrible that I can't remember, where they produce the food and they tell the
replicator. It's called the replicator.
The replicator. Wow, yeah. I can't believe I didn't. I'm terrible. My favorite of the series is Deep Space Nine.
Those are good. Those are good, but there's definitely no substitute for the Clarks and Asimovs of literature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
I like to say, Nanu Nanu.
Yeah, I remember that one too.
Yeah.
You know what? I didn't like science fiction. I never watched Star Wars because when I was a kid, they said we should be flying cars by now, and I think they lied to me. It's kind of hard.
There are a few flying cars.
They are actually working on that. Yeah, Samson Motors actually has gotten pretty close to having a prototype ready. The sad part was I actually got on the waiting list back in 2012 to be the first one, and they were like, it'd be about a year out, and then they were going to start taking deposits. And then they started taking deposits on those things probably around 2014. They still haven't produced a working model yet. So, I think a lot of people put a lot of money in there and are sitting there wondering if they're ever going to get their flying car. But they are developing some cars that fly or basically convert to light wing planes, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah. The flying cars are going to be like kind of like AI, kind of like what's another technology recent VR. They're going to get it working, and then they're going to find out it doesn't work at all like the science fiction writers thought it was going to work. It's not going to do what they thought it was going to do. It's not going to be usable the way they thought, and it's going to be a big surprise. Yeah. So it'll come. Yeah. It'll be interesting.
Well, I just don't think you can have people doing different. I just think you're going to struggle if you have people doing it, because they can't even drive an automobile right now without traffic fatalities. And if you add speed and height to that crash,
power lines, trees, buildings, weather, microbursts.
So
instrument conditions.
That'll have to be autonomous. There's just no way. I mean, you could if someone was a licensed pilot and flying under certain conditions, but to me, there's just no way. You see like in Star Wars or whatever, and you see the plane, flying vehicles, and they're all going in their lines, and they're merging from below and above, and you wouldn't be piloting that yourself.
No,
Mr. Misner, did you ever do any flying or? pilot license or anything like that? Seems like the kind of thing you might get into.
I actually started trying to take some pilot lessons, and I started working through it. It was a half an hour drive from where I lived, to get to the nearest place to take a course and do this. And so I'd signed up with this guy, and I'm like, okay, look, September's coming up, and I said, I'm not traveling. I'm willing to put in 8 hours on Saturday and 4 hours every evening to get this done. And he's like, cool. And so the first day comes up, and he's like, well, we've got a problem with the aircraft. We've got to go into maintenance. And then, oh, well, now we've got a red flag on it when they check the maintenance, and they've got to order a part, and they got to do this. So by the time, September was over before I had access to the plane again. So at that point, I was like, until I'm ready to buy a plane, it just didn't make sense for me to even worry about it.
Yeah, but if it's one guy with one plane, it's another thing if you're going to find a flight school, they've got a fleet of aircraft, and you're going to be able to get up regularly. But that's the way
that was over an hour away.
Sure.
Yeah, that was over an hour away, and they had it structured where you come in for an hour, and I'm like, I'm not going to drive for an hour to take a 1 hour class and then drive back home and try to do that and get my hours in, because it didn't make sense. So never really did, but the idea was there that I would eventually maybe try to own a plane, but
might look back into it, because it does seem like the kind of thing you'd enjoy. You could do like light sport, something real simple, and just putter around the islands.
Well, yeah, but there's not many places for me to go and land, and there's no place for me to store it here. So, because I'm on a little Caribbean island, and there's not even a hangar. Yeah, there's not even a no. You wouldn't want to do that either. This is surf lessons place. This is not a plane lessons.
Oh, okay.
Oh, and I'm sure the local school would be in Spanish, and that would be problematic. The guy's yelling at me in Spanish, and I'm not understanding what he wants me to do. I'm probably not going to do very well.
Here's the thing. I'm going to give you guys $1 billion idea. Make a car like a drone, because we already got that figure that works. You don't have to have that. And then the $1 billion idea is to make a parachute.
Maybe
Mr.
it'd be
Hatch,
better
your
if the
co-host
parachute
is...
came out before you crashed.
The longer you press that button, you're scared.
Your co-host is almost inaudible on my end.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I was yelling at you in Spanish.
I would have been able to detect that.
This is the first time we've been able to hear ourselves, so it's a little strange for him. I've done radio before, and you always hear yourself, but this is the first time I've plugged us into the one where we can hear ourselves. So he's probably being quiet because he can hear himself. You got to be louder, Rudy.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, because it does sound loud to me.
I think he's coming in. I think he's coming into your microphone. I don't think he's coming in. If he has his own back there,
there's only one microphone.
Okay.
He's got to get up on it.
Oops. Get up on it.
Hey, careful.
Can you hear me?
Well, I can hear you moving the microphone.
Can you hear me, guys?
It's a little better.
That's better.
Okay, because I'm the talent of this program, and I just don't want to be silenced. I'm kidding.
But the safety, the people flying the cars is the biggest part of that problem, I think. The FAA would have to clear everybody to be able to fly in order to have flying cars actually flying.
Well, they're trying to make them light wings. Yeah, they're trying to make them light wings, which actually doesn't require a license. But like the Samson one, you actually had to go to an airport to take off. You weren't able to just go out of your driveway and just do it. You had to go to the airport to take off. So again, not completely feasible as of yet. But it's available. If they wanted to make one, they could. Again, I don't see them being mainstream. We might not ever see them mainstream, but
right. Yeah, I'm surprised that something Musk hasn't jumped on yet and promised. He's promised all sorts of stuff. I'm surprised he hasn't promised that yet.
He's a little busy tweeting.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh, what a waste of time.
Well, I don't know. He gets a lot of people talking about things, and I think dialogue is good. If you disagree with someone, that's really where the opportunities to learn are. If we all just sat on this show and agreed with each other the whole time, we wouldn't learn anything.
No, absolutely.
It's when you disagree with something, but you're still willing to listen and have that conversation when you actually can change and grow. And most of us won't take the time to do that because we're looking for echo chambers. And that's what Twitter was before. And he's very much broken that model of an echo chamber. And you didn't need two Twitters with the Trump version and the Twitter version, because, again, it just becomes two different echo chambers echoing an opposite message, and nobody's willing to sit down in the middle and have that conversation.
Yeah, I can see that. It's the disagreeing agreeably part that's missing. People so far seem to just get angry when you disagree with them.
Well, yeah, because we've been conditioned for that. We've been conditioned to respond negatively to anybody who questions what we believe or what our narrative is. And until you just sit back and say, okay, we can agree to disagree, or we can have a conversation about it. But Twitter makes that very hard because it's just too easy to be snotty and rude. Because
we've been conditioned by what? To
distance.
Be disagreeable.
Distance.
By distance? You think so? Okay.
Well, yeah, because you and I can disagree right now, and you can't punch me in the face. But if we were sitting at a bar having a beer, and I tell you something that you disagree with, well, now we're face to face. Now there would be a physical confrontation if we got too heated on it. So we're more willing to talk. We're more willing to have that conversation, and then maybe even agree to disagree and just part ways. But on Twitter, people will start with the insults, and then that just escalates it into worthlessness, and that's what actually 90% of Twitter is right now.
I guess then the next question is, what conditioned us not to just punch the weaker person in the face?
Well, it wouldn't necessarily even be the weaker person. It would just be that someone cannot sit back and realize that people will believe different than them, feel different than them, and that's okay. It's almost like it can't, it's a lot of people feel right now it's not okay to not agree with me.
Right,
and
but my question is, why is the face-to-face confrontation more peaceful? Why don't we just, when we're in face-to-face, actually punch the guy?
Well, it's social norms. We still have social norms. They're falling apart a little bit. You see it on a regular basis where people are doing things that you're like, how, why? I've seen some extreme violence videos, and I'm like, how does someone mentally do that to someone else? How do they dehumanize them so much?
In a lot of environments, it seems to be becoming very easy for people to resort to physical violence in an argument or dispute.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Social norm might be breaking down indeed.
Yeah, and I agree. I think it is because, we think about, I know when I was in school, you might go out in the schoolyard and punch it out, but you weren't going to keep kicking the guy in the head after he was down, and unfortunately we see a lot of that now where people just...
Or come back with a gun.
Yeah, or come back with a gun. And everybody at my school had a gun in their car. They literally had a gun, gun rack in their truck. They had a handgun or they had a rifle or a shotgun in their vehicle. And no one even ever thought of walking out to their car, even if they just lost a fight.
That's the old paradox. Back when kids actually took their guns into school, you never had school shootings. It was normal for a 12-year-old to take a squirrel gun into class with him, and nothing ever happened. So it's, like you say, social norms evolving.
Yeah. And that's, that's unfortunate, but it's the world we live in. So for me, it's just listening. I read a lot more than I say. I read a lot more than I write. And I learn things. And I know that I used to think I was sort of normal. And now I don't know what normal actually is. I think there's just this divergence from a classical norm that everybody had, and we could all kind of agree on a lot of things together. But now it's almost like you see and maybe it's just because we see it more because it's on the internet. But you see the extremes on both sides. You're like, okay, well, I don't know which one of these is crazier, but they're both sort of crazy.
There's actually there's an answer to the question of normalcy that was found by the people who were making uniforms for pilots in the military. They measured and making cockpits that would fit people, designing their cockpits. So they measured all their pilots.
Yeah.
They measured the length of the shin, the length of the upper leg, the torso, the arms, everything. They averaged it all out. They figured out what is the norm on each of those parameters. And they built their flight suit and their gear and their cockpit to fit like the kind of middle quintile of each of those parameters, and it fit nobody. And what they realized is that for any measurable parameter, there is a normal that most people will fit, but not a single person is normal in every parameter. And so you can never have a normal. So that's how, you take that principle and you look across the rest of the human condition. That's how it goes. For any measurable parameter of people, there's going to be a normal, but nobody's going to be normal in every parameter. They're always going to have some way in which they're an outlier and they won't fit in. And I'm sure what you experienced, what I've definitely experienced, is that what we thought was normal was actually an insular experience that was specific to our culture. And as other cultures come in, we find that much as we tried to be egalitarian, much as we tried to be multicultural, our cultural experience was not normal. We had a lot of assumptions that, of course, everybody would believe what we believe. And we can't actually imagine what someone from the Middle East believes, how their minds work at a fundamental level. Someone from East Asia, someone from Russia, someone from South America. And so the idea of cultural norms, it was much more scattered than we thought. And even if you can get people norm in one area, they're going to be outliers in another.
Yeah, I found years ago that that people each have their own reality. If you imagine it as a sphere around them, and for the most part, we seem to overlap our realities, but there's always something. Some people's realities are way skewed off than others. My story I usually tell about this realization is back in the 90s when I thought I was going to be an actor. I was out in Hollywood and for a play, and on rehearsal day, we a bunch of us went to have lunch at this little sidewalk cafe thing, and we're sitting there on the patio, and a gentleman out in the middle of the grassy median in the middle of the street was barking at cars. And he just stood there barking at the cars. And then I noticed a little while later he had stopped. He had gone over to a tree and had picked up what appeared to be his lunch sack. And he was eating. And when he finished that, he put his lunch away. And then he walked back to the edge of the grassy median and began parking at cars again. And so it occurred to me that seemed perfectly normal to him. That was his normal. That was his job, was to bark at cars. I'm sure at some point in the afternoon or evening he went home, whatever that looked like. But yeah, to stop and have his lunch in the middle of the day was normal, and to go back to barking at cars again was normal. So his reality was pretty skewed from the rest of ours. But like you said, William, there were some norms in his life that I could relate to directly, like stopping to have lunch, and so it occurs to me that a lot of people probably have very skewed realities from mine.
I met a man. We met a man the other night who was lying in the side on the road, and we asked him why. He said because he had died for his sins, and we asked him why he was talking to us now. And he said, "Well, he came back." Some people's ideas are very skewed, and some of that
Yes.
may be the methamphetamines. But yeah, there's this bubble concept that you're talking about, or like I liken it to a simulator. We have these flight simulators that have the screens that go all the way around. So you're in a bubble and the world is projected on the screen on all sides. And there's this solipsism in people that they're very naturally inclined to, where they begin to perceive, or maybe naturally perceive, the world as almost just a projection on screens around them. Everybody else is just characters in their story. And they never really connect with the idea that these are other people in their own bubbles. Everything is just a photoplay for their own personal moral drama of life, their own character arc. And they never really imagine that the other folks, at some deep level, they never connect with the idea that the other folks that they're seeing on the screen are real people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're kind of hitting on something, like a child, if they can't see you, you've disappeared. It's like you could do peekaboo behind the wall, and it's like, well, and the dogs and children, young children, they think you don't exist anymore. They don't think about the fact that you're out doing something somewhere else, and then you show back up. It's like you were here, now you're gone. There's no concept that you are continuing to do things in your own life.
And that, so you're saying that solipsism is the essential or natural component of human condition, and then it's social norms that condition us to actually recognize that other people are real.
They can, for sure.
Yeah.
I don't think they always
hopefully do. Hopefully,
yeah, I don't think they always do. Because
but go on.
Everybody seems to think they're center of the universe, and the most important thing on earth. I remember I worked in a library when I was in high school and college, and I would have to, they called it reading books, but basically what it was just making sure books are where they're supposed to be on the shelf. And so it would get really hot in South Mississippi. And so this guy would come in, this homeless guy, his name was Chicky Black. And he would come in, he would just take a stool and sit down while I was going through the books. And he would just start telling me stories about his life. And so I was, I'd listen to his stories. And of course, then the librarian later would be like, you can't be talking to him. I'm like, I wasn't talking to him. I was just listening to him. And so he's going to sit there on a bench and talk to me. Am I supposed to ignore him? We don't kick him out. We let him stay here. He's in the air conditioning. But one day he told me, he said, okay, well, it's time for me to go away. And I said, well, where are you going? And he said, I'm going to go to jail. And I said, okay. I said, why would you think that you're going to go to jail? What have you done? He said, well, I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to. And I'm like, okay, what are you going to do? And he says, well, I'm going to try to rob this place, and I'm not going to do it very well. And I'm like, okay, why would you try to rob a place
and poorly
get caught? Yeah, and know that you're going to get caught and know that you're going to go to jail. And he says, well, I'm on a disability check, and I get the check for a certain amount of time, and then they tell me that I'm not going to get the check anymore. And so he says, so then I go do something to get myself put in jail, and it's like I've got a place to stay, and I've got my meals, and they actually treat me pretty nice there. Said I don't get to go where I want to go, and I won't be able to come here and see you, but that's what I've got to do. And so it's just this whole perspective of life of the literally planning ahead for what he was going to do in his life. And I was so far removed from thinking that was reasonable until he literally explained it to me. And then you're like, well, okay, if I was in his position and I was homeless, and basically I was not going to have any money, and it wasn't, this was not a good panhandling town. It was like, people probably would have given him some money, but not like a disability check. So the dude had a cycle and a process, and it worked. He would go spend some time in jail. He'd get out. He'd go back on disability, because while he was in jail, they would do the mental assessment and say, okay, he's not capable of work. And then they'd start giving him a check again. They'd let him out, and then he'd be fine until his check ran out. And they said, okay, you don't get it anymore. And then he would go do something silly to get himself put in jail. Not hurt anybody, but just, I'm going to go rob a place and get caught.
And there's this whole world, a novel of history, and the simple phrase, if I was in his position, like how much of a life story got him to that position where that is a reasonable cycle of choices to make. Like, you or I would never be in that position because of our background, because of the way we were taught to think and reason through life's problems and solve those problems and find purpose, and maybe not use certain substances. We would never get there. So yeah, if I was in his position,
I don't think he was a substance abuser. I really don't. I think he was at a disadvantage from a basic point of he was a black man in South Mississippi. You know, at that point in time, I was like 18, 19 years old. He was probably well into his 40s. And he just never really had any skills that were marketable for him to continue to do. Maybe at one point he did, but this was the most efficient and effective way for him to make sure that he had shelter, food, and everything that he needed. And he had a system and a process, and he followed it through. And, you know, it was just interesting that he was telling me goodbye. Yeah, and he was telling me goodbye because he had to go away, like he was having to go away for work, you know, on a business trip somewhere, and he was going to, you know, be back in a few months, kind of thing. It was just kind of a bizarre conversation, but it kind of struck me, like you said, it's what's your norm, you know, and it's like you said, I don't think I would have ever even thought of that norm, but in his situation, would I have done the same thing? And, you know, yeah, if I got myself in trouble trying to steal food because I couldn't buy food, and then I got put in jail and they fed me, it's like, oh, I did this to get food and now they're giving me food. Okay.
Yeah, but again, so much would have to be different for you to be in that situation. You'd be a different person than you are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, a norm that it made sense to him. And yeah, even though it doesn't make sense to us necessarily, I mean, there is a way to look at it, to figure out the logic behind it. But yeah, it's like in my brain, I couldn't do that. It's like that's not how the world works, or how.
Sure, and some things that may be logical make sense. They're efficient for the situation, but doesn't mean they're optimal.
Right.
There are maybe wiser choices to make.
We don't necessarily look for optimal. We look for workable.
That is unfortunate.
When something works, you know, if it works, don't fix it. I saw a guy on YouTube the other day that said, "If it ain't broke, I'll fix it till it is."
Yeah.
Well, you're hitting on a very important point. Is that the people that do optimal are that 1%. That's why they are where they are. I mean, you know, we were talking about Elon Musk a little earlier. Okay, Elon helped develop and build, PayPal, and then they sold that to eBay. Okay, I don't know about you, but I use PayPal every day.
Not every day, but I use.
Okay. And so at the point in time, it was magic. Now, did Elon do all of that? No, but he was responsible for helping them put that together to optimize it, to make it what it was. And then he took that and he parlayed that into 3 different bets. Mm-hmm. And all 3 of those bets are paying off.
Yeah.
And now he's taking a 4th bet with Twitter. And what does he do? He just tries to optimize it. And what optimizes Twitter? Engagement. So what does he do? He posts on his own platform to get more
that makes
engagement.
People argue. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that's how he gets paid. And it's so funny. It's like people will make a silly post, like, do you support Elon Musk? And I said, by making this post, you just did.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, there's definitely a genius in his ability to, you say he makes a bet and all 3 of them paid off, but he makes a bet and then he makes it work one way or another. He knows who he's selling to. The electric cars, so much of that is subsidized. So he pitched it all to the government as much as he did to the buyers. And he knew who his real customer was. He knew what the real business model was, and he played it for everything it was worth.
And then he optimizes and he optimizes and he optimizes. So it's not just to have an electric car, because you can look at the history of the DeLorean and see it's not just about having a cool car. You got to do something with it. And so the fact that he continues to innovate, continues to change it, came out with the truck. I don't know how that's all going to play out when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I suspect he's never actually used a pickup truck the way that thing was built.
But he made it ugly, and everybody hated it, which means everybody was talking about it, which means people wanted it. And so, again, he optimized that. It was not enough to just have a thing. He literally is playing a game of chess, and the rest of the world's playing checkers for the most part, like I said.
Seems
so
like
you have to look at that 1% and say, why are they the 1%? They're the optimizers. They're the people who don't quit. They don't just settle. They don't just take normal and say, okay, I've created a truck, I've created a car, I've created a spacecraft. I mean, they're literally landing it on an island and reusing it.
Yeah,
and,
you're almost saying like the popular culture wisdom is to learn to be satisfied with your life, but the 1% of the people who reject that and they say, I'm never satisfied. There's always something I can do differently or better. Yeah. Maybe satisfaction is not as important as we think it is.
Well, satisfaction and happiness is a temporary thing, really. You get something and you're happy with it for a while, and then you're just okay with it, and then you don't like it anymore. So you have to find something better so that you can be happy again, and all. But going back to Alan, going back a couple steps to what you said, I think you're limiting Elon Musk in a way that he's not actually limited, because he's not playing chess. He's kind of playing chess, but he's playing a chess that you can take back a move when it doesn't work, and he can pivot, and he can go, okay, this is ugly, and even though people really seem to want it, it's ugly, and not everybody's going to want it. So I can pivot a little bit, take that move back just a hair, and change, and go, okay, now more people will like this. And he can do that with Twitter and SpaceX and Tesla and all that kind of stuff. That, if it doesn't quite work, I can take the move back.
Right. Well, that's optimization. That's exactly what optimization doesn't always mean doing more or something different.
Right.
It could literally be just saying, okay, we were closer to optimum before. Let's ratchet this down a little bit.
Right.
And so you have that. But, one of the interesting things is I have gone counterculture to a lot of that, because I was a corporate executive at age 39, supervising all these people, working in, Fortune 500 companies, traveling all over the world, doing that thing, making the money. And I was freaking miserable.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I can curse a little bit on this show.
Sure, you can.
Yes or no? Okay. Anyway,
just a little bit.
Anyway, I refer to myself as the fat bastard, because everything that I identified with as a child, as a kid growing up, being an athlete and all those things, all that was gone. I had given that away to be this successful corporate guy. And I was miserable. And I wanted to change, and it took me a long time. But what I found was that I had to let go of certain battles. And one of the battles I let go of was trying to push myself up the corporate ladder, trying to be the best at that. I was in what I would call the 1% of that for a long time. And that was, financially it was great. But there was just a point where I said, okay, no, this is not serving me in the long run for the life I want to live. So maybe I pulled a Chicky Black by selling all of my stuff and moving down to a Caribbean island where my cost of living is a fraction of what it was in the United States. But that's what I did. And so if you would ask someone, am I an optimizer? Am I in the top 1%? I would say, what's your measuring stick? Because
what problem are you optimizing?
Right. And I'm optimizing, like you had said earlier, Bill, is I'm optimizing my situation. I'm optimizing my life and saying, okay, I'm happy here. I'm right where I want to be. If I have to get on a boat or a plane to leave this island, I don't want to. I begrudgingly do it from time to time because I have, family obligations, and I had to go get a medical thing done not long ago. And so I'll do it, but I don't like doing it. I want to stay on this island. I want to do what I'm doing. I love what I do, and I want to keep doing it.
Yeah.
And is what you're doing on the island, that's your business now, your health after 40 advising business that you do?
It's both. Yeah, I'm an online coach for people over 40 in the health and fitness field, and my wife and I run a bed and breakfast.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
but that's a nice place.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's a little 6-bedroom Caribbean style house. With each one has their own shower and bath, and there's a full kitchen for the guests. And so it's a really cool thing. And we have guests coming through every day, some new people coming in, other people going out. And so it's just an opportunity to connect with people all around the world, help them have a good time in Bocas by advising them on, best places to eat, best activities to do, and make sure they have a good, relaxing vacation. And so that's part of it, is that gift of taking care of people in a place where they might be a little bit sensitive because this isn't their home country. And some of our guests have never been outside the United States, and this is their first foray into the international space. And it's kind of off the beaten path. So they're maybe a little bit, intimidated. And
that's adorable.
Yeah. And then you're just taking care of them. It's like, here's where you are. They're like, okay, I want to go here. How do I do it? I'm like, okay, you're going to walk down here. You're going to walk past this building, past that park. And then there's the dock. And it should cost you $6, $8 to get the water taxi to take you where you want to go. And so those are joys. I mean, those are gifts. And when I have a client that's lost a lot of weight, that's a gift to me. I love that part of my job, part of my life. And now here also with the clients and guests that are staying at our hotel, they're having a wonderful breakfast, they're having a wonderful experience, and they're leaving Bocas having really good memories.
Mr. Misner, can I ask you a question?
Sure. And you can call me Alan.
Alan, on your bio on your website, you said that you went through there was a crisis period, and then you had a sort of turnaround that was fairly acute or sudden. Was that what you're talking about when you left the corporate world and went down there?
Well, no, it's a structure. It was a step. So I wouldn't say it was dramatic fast. It was like someone will sit there and say it's an overnight success. Okay, so it was an overnight weight loss dream, but I went through 8 years of failure from that moment. I was sitting on a beach in Puerto Vallarta, like I said, successful, loving my life. It was wonderful. I was making tons of money and I hated myself, but I was sitting on that beach, and the day before I'd been trying to play sand volleyball, something I did very well when I was younger, and I couldn't make it through a whole game. I had to sub out, and I was miserable about that. And so I was like, what happened to me? Where am I in this? And
at this time you're still in the corporate field.
Yeah. And so then I made the decision, and I say a decision, but 8 years later, I wasn't any better off. In fact, I probably was in worse shape. And it was trial and error, trial this, fail that, lose 20 pounds, gain 30, lose 20 pounds, gain it back, that back and forth thing. And I was in a hotel. I woke up, I was hungover, and I sat there and said, okay, why? Why is this one part of my life so difficult when...
Well, I can tell you why you were hungover.
Yeah, I knew why I was hungover. Yeah, I didn't know how many, but I could tell you why.
They never do. They had two, the first one and the last one. The rest is a little fuzzy.
Yes. But the interesting thing was this, is I realized that the reason I had been successful at other things that I had done was because I committed to doing them. There was no doubt that I was going to do it. It was a commitment. And that's the difference, the decision versus the commitment. And so people decide, well, I want to lose a little bit of weight, or I want to do this, and there's no emotion behind that. It's just like, okay, what does that weight mean to you? Well, I'll be smaller, I'll fit in my clothes, and I'll look better. So what? And then it was, I'm losing myself. I really am losing who I am. And I'm watching things happen around me. I'm becoming a spectator in my own life because I don't have the capacity to participate in the things that matter. And that's when that commitment hit me. And I'm like, I have to commit to this. This has to be an absolute. This has to have to put the same thing into this that I did when I was in the military. I have to put the same thing I did in this that I did when I played football, when I was studying for the CPA exam. It was just this commitment. You have to commit. And then once you make that commitment, it becomes easy. Motivation is just automatic because at that point, you're in love with yourself. You know why you're doing this. You care about it so desperately that you just make it happen. And that's what I did. And so then from there, it was dramatic. 11 months, I lost 66 pounds of fat.
Wow.
I gained 11 pounds of muscle. I went from fat bastard to completing a Tough Mudder with my CrossFit level 1 daughter, who was 20 years old, 25 years younger than me. And we did that race. And, you know, my core going into it, I did not want to slow her down. And I wanted to be a participant in her life. And that's what she was into. And so we did that race. And here's the payoff. The payoff was crossing that finish line, holding her hand.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
talk about a dad dream.
Nobody can take that away from me. Running a Tough Mudder is a 13-mile race with obstacle courses, running that with my adult daughter and finishing with her and not holding her back and being a support for her, you know, on this whole thing and finishing holding her hands.
And what would you say? Magic. Yeah, absolutely. And what would you say was the key element of finding the commitment? Would it be something like you were finally prepared to sacrifice the things that you had to sacrifice to make it happen? What defined that commitment?
Yeah, the basic commitment was I knew it was time. I knew it was time, and I was going to commit a lot of time to training, and I was going to have to commit effort to knowing what to do because I was still traveling like 90% of the time. And so people will use that as an excuse. Oh, well, I can't work out because I'm on the road all the time. And when you throw out a term like 90%, just to put it in context, because the math seems kind of hard for a lot of people, that means I was at my house sleeping in my own bed about 3 nights a month. Okay. So I couldn't hire a trainer. You know, because at that point, trainers were in the gym and they're like, okay, I'll meet you on Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 6 o'clock. See you.
At the gym.
Yeah. I couldn't do that. So I was like, well, what do I have to do? And so I started taking courses and I got certified as a personal trainer. Then I'm like, okay, well, my movement is crap. And so I went into corrective exercise. I did behavior management. I did fitness nutrition. I did.
So you got certified as a personal trainer before you were fit to train yourself.
Yes, I became my own coach.
That is dedication.
That's dedication. That's time and effort and everything. And so then I started doing it, and I made the change. But then I went ahead and launched the podcast and all that. But at some point, I realized, okay, while I am physically fit and I do a lot of really good things for my health, there's still some problems, and stress management was maybe the biggest one. And so when I got laid off from my job in December of 2017, I just told my wife, I'm like, I'm not really making any money doing this podcast or this personal training thing, but I'm going to. That's going to be the main way I pay our bills. And I'm committed to that.
Did you? You said that because you found that you really enjoyed, you had a passion for it, or because there's some psychologists would say that we have a longing to be useful to our community, to feel like we're contributing. Did this give you that sense more than your corporate life did?
It did, and there's one other side I throw out in the story, and this will make all the sense in the world. I was an auditor. Okay, I was an internal auditor in a corporation. And so if you've ever worked for a corporation, there's these guys that go around and make sure everybody does everything the way they're supposed to. They dot the I's, cross the T's, they check everything off. If you're not doing what you're supposed to do, they have to write this report and tell everybody how you didn't do your job right, and then help you figure out how you did. I was voted the most hated person in the company 10 years, almost 10 years in a row. There was 1 year that this other compliance guy got it, and that's only because they made him do an enterprise risk assessment. And if you've ever gone through one of those, you'll understand why. He won most hated for that year, but pretty much the whole other time for 10 years that I was working at that company in particular, because my boss had no problem telling me, we did a little survey, and you're the most hated person in the entire company. And that was my day-to-day job, was that confrontation. So you can imagine how stressful that is, where you're literally sometimes having to go toe-to-toe with a CEO or someone like that in a company. It's not fun. So there was no fun in my other job. Whereas when I'm having a conversation with a client and she's over 50 and didn't believe she could lose any weight, and she's lost 41 pounds in 6 months, that's a pretty cool moment, or a client that's now they're getting off of their blood pressure medication. Their doctor's like, we're going to cut back on your blood pressure medication, and they know within a couple months they're probably not even going to be taking any medications.
So you're saying there's nothing that quite compares to making somebody else better, stronger, elevating them, helping them grow.
I can't think of anything that would be better than that. I mean, we do it for our family all the time. You think about it, you have your kids, you do everything to protect them and take care of them. Sometimes they don't like it, but you still do it. You do that for your spouse. You do that for your parents. That inherent nature of caring is there. And then, obviously we have our spheres of control, and maybe we just do it a little less the further we get out, but it still feels good. It still feels good to help someone, to hold the door open for them. It just feels good. Like your guy barking at this side of the road deal. Give him $1. You feel good about it, right? We help someone.
Mm-hmm.
Now, maybe you helped him buy some whiskey, but you still help someone.
Yeah, but it's appropriate to take an innocent approach to that. Absolutely.
And Alan, where can people find you if they want to get help getting fit?
Well, you can go to 40plusfitness.com. That's my personal training site. You can go to 40plusfitnesspodcast.com, and that's where you can find the podcast and the 580 some odd episodes of that are out there. And then I wrote a book called The Wellness Roadmap, which is a straightforward guide to health and fitness for people over 40s. And you can find that anywhere that you buy books.
I suspected you'd written a book. I couldn't find it, but I was busy on your website.
Yeah, I did. When I got laid off, that was, like I said, I told my wife I'm not going back, and I thought, okay, how can I make myself more marketable? How can I help more people? Because the podcast was growing, but I was like, I know I can reach more people if I just have different ways of being out there. So I did write the book.
Okay. So really, you didn't let go of the corporate world. The corporate world let go of you. And that was that moment when you took the opportunity to start fitness. And
I tried to let go. I tried to let go. I was if in corporate, you get up to the top and you're in a high position, and then everybody's looking at the people that work for the company as numbers. I'm sorry, but they may say they love you and they care about you, but in the end, if there's 3 people that have to go, it's usually not going to be them. They're not going to typically put their own name on the list. Well, I'd gone through a couple rounds of this, and the company I worked for wanted them gone by the end of the year. And so from a timing perspective, they would usually tell me right before Thanksgiving break that I had to let a certain number of people go. And then I would have to think over my Thanksgiving break who those people would be. And then I would have to, the first couple of weeks of December, travel around the world and tell people that they were no longer needed at the company.
Right in time for Christmas.
Just in time for Christmas.
Yep.
And that was what I would do every December, November, December. That was the end of every year. And then the whole conversation of cut your budget and do more, all those things. And so they came around, and there was the year before I got laid off. I went through the list, and they said, we need you to cut 3 people. Now, at this point, I was down to 12. I'd gone from 23 down to 12 over the course of the previous 3 years. And they said, you got to cut 3. And I'm like, well, that's a lot. And they're like, well, and I said, there's certain things we do on demand. People ask us to do. I said, I'm going to be saying no to some of those people. So I just want you to know that I won't be able to do it. They're going to have to outsource that because I can't do it. I've got a job to do, and I need these people, but we'll get it done. Anyway, so I was sitting down on Thanksgiving break, and I went to my wife, and I said, hey, I'm going to put my name on the list.
Okay.
And she said, what do you mean? I'm like, well, I think I'm just going to put my name on the list. I'll take a package. I'll go find another job, and we'll be fine. And she's like, okay. So I called my boss. I said, okay, I've got the list. I says, this person, and me. He said, what? He said, oh, no. We can't be without you. We need you.
They need their
Okay. So they made me basically take someone else out. And so I did it reluctantly. Well, a year later, they decided they didn't need me. So they completely outsourced the department and laid us all off. So, they didn't need me. They needed me for a little while until they decided that they didn't need me.
Okay.
But it's all numbers, that basically someone can look at their financial filing for the end of the year and say there's fewer headcount than there was last year. Therefore, they're more cost effective and da-da-da-da-da. It's math and
Isn't
it's numbers.
necessarily true, but
yeah, it's not, but it looks good. And I can tell them, it's like, you're going to spend more outsourcing this. You're just going to spend more because every time you go and ask them for something different, something new, an investigation or this and that, you're going to be hiring that out. You're going to spend more. I said, so their base bid is going to be lower than or at what you pay me now. I said, but you're going to pay them more. And so I said, this is really just about head count and how many people are on the financial statement. And that's all it is. It's nothing more. So they could say they love you and they care about you. But as long as they get to keep taking their trips to the Virgin Islands over Christmas and do their thing, they don't. I'm sorry.
right.
So it's just a world I didn't want to be in. I didn't like those people. I didn't like having to be like that because at the point I could sit there and tell you, well, the people I have working for me, she just bought a house, because we just gave her a promotion and she just bought a house. And this guy's having problems with his kids and his teen kids and drugs. And, this woman's got this problem. And so I know their personal stories. I know that's how I connected with my staff. And so now they're like, you got to get rid of 3 of them. So this is like picking children to get rid of, in my mind. And so that was extremely stressful and hard. And so from a optimizing perspective, it was, that's not optimized. That's not how I view living a fulfilled and happy life. I was adding value to a corporation and I was being paid for it well. But at the end, it was not fulfilling because it just seemed like do the work. Things don't necessarily get any better. Fire a few people, do the work. Things don't necessarily get any better. Fire a few people. And I just was done. I said, I'm done. And so now when I get off a phone call with a client, I know that I've helped them.
Yeah.
I can feel good about what I do.
Yeah, for sure. That does sound very rewarding.
You know what's funny? One time I worked at this place and they give me my yearly review. And
Eat that microphone, man.
Yep, louder.
They give me a review, right? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yep.
They give me the yearly review, and one thing was said, it was good for what was that, customer service. And then the next thing they go, now what's bad is customer service. I'm like, so you're going to give me a good customer service and it's bad that I give customer service? And then the guys would tell me, the boss, we can't give you a good review because then you take our job. So you're good enough for our job. So they would give everybody a messed up review so you couldn't take the boss's job. But then what I figured out when I worked, because I grew up in the projects with a lot of criminals. The worst criminals I have ever worked with was people that worked they were the biggest liars. One time I worked at UCI and a lady told me, she said, hey, just go do your job. I said, you shouldn't talk to me that way. She took me to the office, started telling me stuff, hey, you're out of here, you're done and everything. So she couldn't fire me because we had a union. So when the union came, I said, hey, did you say that I'm fired, I'm done here and all this? I said, you didn't say that you're not here no more, you're no good and this and that? She said, no. But she had a plaque of her when she was in the Navy. I said, hey, take that down because you're not even you're not a person. I go, because people have died in the war. My grandpa went to the war. And you're claiming that you're a good whatever soldier you were. And you're going to be a liar. And honestly, she just lied to my face. And at least when you're a criminal, somebody lies to your face, you punch them in the face. And then all of a sudden the truth comes out. But you know what, guys? One question I wanted to ask. When you found like you had everything that you wanted in the world, were you happy? Because my thought is, oh, I own the house, just to live there to die so I can always have something that I don't have to worry about. Did you guys have happiness when you were successful?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's kind of one of those things of like, I remember when I first got my my first directorship at a company, a big company, and I was interviewing for it internally, but everybody hated everybody in my department, and the people who were interviewing were the people we would be auditing. So it was kind of like, okay, the people who hate you most are going to decide if they want to promote you. And I remember I was waiting for a phone call to get the answer, and I was sitting out on my patio having dinner and drinking a glass of wine, and the phone rang, and I got up and ran and didn't realize that we'd closed the screen door. I literally ran right through that screen door to get to that phone, and when I learned I got the promotion, I wasn't too happy about having to replace the screen door, but I was,
but you could afford to.
Yeah, well, yeah, because that was a pretty sweet little raise, and so there's those moments where, or like I would do an audit or do some work, and it would really do something good. Or when like there was a company that would do they would do surveys of how companies do business, and they featured a white paper on my process, the way I developed and designed the process for what we did. And so they thought it was really interesting and unique and a great perspective. So they actually featured that in one of their white papers. So there were moments of this.
The happiness is transient, and it is not the same as satisfaction.
Right. Now, what I can tell you is being here, I have a lot more of those moments. Being on this island, helping people here, I have a lot more of those moments. The clients that I help here, I have a lot more of those moments, because it's not about a promotion or being promoted, if you will, like being in a white paper and having my peers really like what I'm doing. This is a different feeling, because it's got much more depth to it. There's more. It has more, I would say, consequence, if you will, because someone's health and life, to me, is much more valuable than whether the procurement manager got 3 signatures on a piece of paper.
Very good.
Yeah.
I was just curious about one other thing real quick, sir. Alan, what did you do in the military?
Infantry.
Like legit infantry? Deployed overseas?
11 Bravo. I didn't deploy. It was peacetime.
Mm-hmm.
But basically trained, and then they put me in a Ranger unit.
11 Bravo. Good for you.
Yeah, so it was pretty intense. I was 101st Airborne, so I was mixed in there with the Rangers, and you train. They say you train the way you're going to perform. So we were pretty rough with.
Oh yeah, no, I know what those guys get up to in their training. That's legit, and 11 Bravo is legit for sure.
When were you with the 101st?
I went in 86 and got out in 88.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So just before.
Just before, yeah.
We were in at Fort Campbell. My father was with the 101st as a chaplain, starting in '89, I think it was. So yeah, he got Desert Storm, Desert Shield.
Yeah, I was back into college when that happened, and everybody's like, "Well, Alan, are you afraid they're going to call you up?" And I'm like, "Well, it is an 8-year stint. You know, when you sign up for the Army, at least back then, you signed up for 8 years. There was 2 years active for me as an infantry, and then 6 years inactive. And they said, "Are you really worried about they're going to get called up?" I'm like, "No, no, no, because what they need now is supply clerks and people who are going to shuffle papers, people who work in payroll, things like that. How they're going to get the equipment there and maybe bring it back."
Did you get in jumps while you were in the 101st training?
I didn't
Parachutes?
do jump school. I didn't do jump up in the parachutes because actually that training was at Benning. I did air assault, so I jumped out of helicopters.
Nice.
Yeah.
After my own heart, very good.
Yeah, I was with the rappel unit, so we did a lot of rope work and rappels.
That's awesome. Well done.
But, how about a little bit about you, William?
Yeah.
Oh, like what?
Let's see. Well, you're the first,
anybody can get on this show.
Yep, anybody can get on this show. That's right. Well, you're the first person to describe themselves as a Christian apologist.
That's interesting. That's what was interesting to you.
Yeah.
But I notice you introduce your brother in Christ every time you do this show, but you don't bring up your faith very much on the show.
Not on this show. This show is supposed to be more about the guests, and we do occasionally talk about faith and Christianity. Actually, we have another show where we express that quite a bit, called YWL Online. And we do 2 of those shows a week. I do them with my father, who, as I said, was a chaplain, Navy, Marines, Army, and VA, and also a cruise ship chaplain, which
nice.
I've always found interesting. But yeah, and so we get to talk about the Bible and Christianity in general, and faith and all of those things there. But yeah, there's not much. There's not a lot of opportunity to do the Christian thing on this particular show.
Right, you're getting mostly professional stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Will, what's the apology for?
Yeah.
Oh, it's because I'm so sorry. And I suppose that in every venue that has to be explained. It's not apologizing, as I'm sure both of you know. It's
right.
Apologia, the Greek word for giving a defense. And this is not a vocation, it's an avocation. But mostly I do what I do. But if people want to talk about that, I try to be ready for it. And given the resources that are currently available, I would say we're probably in the golden age of Christian apologetics right now. As far as that goes, Gary Habermas was back in the 70s when he released his doctoral thesis. And since then you've got people doing Lydia McGrew's Bayesian analysis. You got John McClatchy's maximal data arguments. You've got William Lane Craig's philosophical arguments. You've got the fine-tuning stuff that is off the charts now. Stephen Meyer's books on that the fine-tuning argument has just gone bananas as far as everything they've learned about the cosmological constants that are out there, and just how tuned they have to be, how tuned our planet has to be, as far as not just its size and its distance from the sun and what kind of sun and what size of sun, but the presence of a gas giant, the presence of a very unusual moon, that, our moon is not a typical satellite. It seems to be a breakoff that's huge compared to its host planet and getting farther away, not closer. That all of these were essential for the instigation of life on Earth. And then you've got increasing problems with natural selection as the fossil record becomes more and more complete. It's converging towards punctuated stability rather than a gradual increase in order. You've got the mathematical problems with life itself, the probabilistic resources for a natural selection process just not existing. The more we learn about genetic code, the problem of information theory, which is kind of my background as a computer science guy, the idea that everything in life is information and there are certain rules for how information works, how it increases in a system, and there's no mechanism for that naturally. So all of that together, and all the people who are putting that out in academic work and then work for the public, like I said, Stephen Meyer, Jonathan McClatchy, Lydia McGrew, William Lane Craig, and then the folks like Lee Strobel, who are writing the popular level books.
Right.
And then the YouTubers that are picking it up now, the David Woods, the Mike Jones Inspiring Philosophy, the Mike Winger doing his work on YouTube, 500,000, 750,000 subscribers. And their work is incredibly well informed. It's just very, very potent, and it's getting to the point where you could be extremely well armed to say this is not just, if a religion is an ordered theory about the origin and nature of the universe from which a person can derive information about how to live, you have theories that have no basis, no backing, various pantheons, Shintoism, Hinduism, atheism, and then you've got this one outlier that makes very specific historical and philosophical claims, and we just keep learning more and more and more that backs it up. Oh yeah, and the archaeology at this point is bananas. They just found a lead curse tablet that big in a trash pile in Jerusalem that confirms Old Testament details that historians for a century have considered had to be fabricated, had to be redacted. The documentary hypothesis of the Old Testament, that it was all constructed from various proto-religions, and then they find a curse tablet from the Middle Bronze Age too that says nope, they were using this terminology in the exact place where the Old Testament says, in the exact way that the Old Testament says, at the time that the Old Testament says, and dates it all back there. And those little details keep piling up. So this is the age to make an argument for Christianity, and it's very, very impressive, the work that's coming out now. So it's not what I do, it's not what I write, it's not my job, but it is. There's so much information right now that it's always fun to get into those arguments, because people are not ready for just how much there is.
Right. For sure.
Yeah, I'm definitely not getting into that argument because I'm not as well read.
Yeah.
Me neither. But your brief bio also said you were a Navy pilot. And
yes, sir. So I was an H-60 pilot, so that's why the helicopter jumpers are near and dear to my heart. I was, did some roping and some insert extract Marines and some good stuff. Like you, was all training, just years and years of training, and missed the action. But boy, that training is fun. Fast roping guys on goggles is a blast. Did a stint as a fixed wing instructor. So if you, Mr. Misner, if you get interested, check me out. We'll get you up back in the air. Did a brief stint directing some airstrikes in East Africa, also a blast. Hunting the most dangerous game from behind a desk, but more importantly, being ready to protect our own guys that are maneuvering around out there and solve that problem. That's kind of the picture of my military service. Nothing too dangerous, nothing too crazy, but good. I enjoyed it and learned a lot, took a lot of skill set from it. experiences.
Well, I wouldn't say not dangerous. So we had an incident. We were doing night exercises, and they were trading off the helicopters for us. So we went out and did our session, and then we went back out, and someone from our headquarters came in that next morning and said, "Oh, you guys are still all alive." And we're like, "Yeah, what happened?" It turned out 2 of the helicopters collided, killed 19 soldiers in training.
Yeah.
So stuff happens, but the point being is that all the news said was they just listed our company, the battalion. They didn't tell anybody which battalion until they were able to talk to the families.
The families, yeah.
And so this guy didn't know when he was driving out there whether he would find us out there or not, because he didn't even know that it was a different company.
So they've since codified a lot of the stuff like operational risk management. They actually took a lot of that from civilian aviation, imported it to military aviation, and nowadays, you memorize this stuff, you talk about it, you get training on it, and I always took ORM pretty seriously. So I would say when we did our fast roping exercises, it was not terribly dangerous. Not because it isn't inherently dangerous, but because we did a little homework. I didn't care to have an experience like that.
Yeah. It was just kind of, it made you think.
Yeah.
Something like that happens.
I did a deployment over in Bahrain, and we were doing all that stuff. We were going out and doing cast exercises. We were going fast roping guys, doing insert extracts with brownouts up in Kuwait, and did it all safely, had a great time, rotated out, and the next rotation on that deployment rolled a helicopter. So it's all about how you manage it.
Yeah,
for sure. And your website, William?
WCcollier.com, or you can just go on Amazon and Google the book.
Which is The Outsiders, correct?
Yep. Yeah. So if you look for Outsiders Collier on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or wherever else, you'll find it. But yeah, that's just something I kind of do for fun when I'm not, in and around the time when I'm living in the world, is just write fun stories. And they said I should put this one out, so I did.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm going to take a second to insert my little commercial.
Are you tired of being bogged down by tedious paperwork and repetitive tasks? AutomateU.co can give you the edge you need to succeed and stay ahead of the competition. With our innovative automation solutions, you can save time, reduce costs, increase efficiency, and grow sales across your entire business. Revolutionize your business with AutomateU's innovative automation solutions. Stay ahead of the competition and boost your bottom line with streamlined processes, increased efficiency, and enhanced sales growth. Try AutomateU.co today and start achieving your business goals faster than ever before. Get your 30-day free trial now at AutomateU.co.
And we're back.
Nice.
Yeah. It works when you're able to edit and post. Yeah, it's the only thing I do is I add in my commercial and I add the ending credits, and that's it. Everything else goes out on the air, so including Fat Bastard.
Hey. I have to ask anyway. I can't just throw that out there.
Yeah.
Then you got to start working with bleeps, and nobody wants that. No,
I don't do that. Nobody wants that. Yeah, when I was on the radio, we had the 3-second dump button, but we never actually had to use that. So, but it was always a funny threat to me because I'd always say crazy stuff. But
I got 3 seconds to fix you.
Yep. Yeah, let's see. So what else is there? Let's see. We've talked about Allan's 40plusfitness.com and 40plusfitnesspodcast.com. And then we've got William's WCcollier.com, which
I'm pretty
all
sure
those
that's
links, right. That's what you wrote. Let's
Oh,
see
good.
here if it clicks through.
It's like your own phone number. You don't call yourself very often.
Let's see if it comes up. Let's see here. It moves to fantasyvreality.com.
That's
And then
just
you got
fine.
the Outsiders. Yep.
Yeah, that's where it's all piled up. So that's good.
Redirect. Yeah, I have a redirect. I have a couple of redirects. I got to get my my websites all in order. But very cool. I like this. This is very nice. I like the covers. Yeah, it's very colorful.
I pretty much had to do everything myself because this is I'm a nobody as far as publishing goes, and so it's just a passion project. So I tried to do right by the story and put something nice together for it, and then get back to work.
Back to real life. And what's real life for you these days?
These days, right now I'm a police officer.
Okay.
It was one of those things that sort of out there that I hadn't experienced yet, and it's kind of everybody's always talking about it, and it's very unpopular with a certain segment. So I figured, well, if a lot of people don't like it, I should go do it. Sounds like fun.
You'd have made a great auditor.
Yeah, probably would have. But I really enjoyed doing airstrikes. That was super fun, and all my JTACs had a good time. And then got out in time to just kind of not participate in the COVID stuff, and then got a corporate job. So I got the corporate world for just a moment with Raytheon over in UAE.
Okay.
And that was like, what year was that? This is 23. That was 21, June of 21. I got over there, July of 21. And then we were mentoring Afghan Air Force pilots in their training pipeline. And it was going to be a nice, cushy 2-year corporate gig, maybe an entree into Raytheon. And then Afghanistan collapsed. We pulled out. Afghanistan fell over flat, and we had to get all those pilots refugeed somewhere because the Taliban had a fatwa on them. And that was that. That was the full extent of my corporate life. Was 4 months in UAE, and then the whole program came crashing down. So came back home and thought, what was the other adventure that I hadn't had yet? Oh yeah, police. So popped into the academy. Takes 6 months, easy as pie. You study a little bit, you exercise a little bit. And they make you a police officer, and then you do another 6 months of training with your department. But yeah, it's been very interesting so far. Lots of crazy people.
My grandfather was a cop here in Santa Ana back in the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
well, there's a lot of bad things that are going on around the policing world. That's for sure. But definitely a lot of respect for the good ones who are out there doing their job. Right.
Yeah, and most of them are, especially in the smaller towns, which is where I kind of position myself. And the problem set is very different than it used to be. It used to be, it's like, okay, you got your big mafia types, gangs, and street criminals, and nowadays it's cartel related stuff. You got your petty crime, you got your cartel related stuff, and then you've got social disorder in the big cities because of those social norms we were talking about that turned out to be not at all as fundamental as everybody thought they were. And drug use. Everybody's on marijuana, and everybody's convinced that it's a drug with no dangers, and everybody's ignoring the studies that show that it builds paranoia pathways in the brain. And so if you are a child or still with a developing brain, and that's still under 26. So you start on this stuff when you're less than 26 years old, you start on it and you have any kind of predisposition to paranoia disorder. Next thing you know, you're just hearing people screaming and fighting around you that aren't even there. So these cities that have legalized marijuana or where marijuana is de facto illegal, huge explosions in schizophrenia, psychosis, delusions, hallucinations, violent behavior, and meth use, because methamphetamines are marijuana plus. So that is the problem set these days for the cops. It's like every week you're going to get a call out to somebody who thinks he's Jesus, or that he's being attacked by demons, or that there's an assault going on right around the corner if you would just go look. And they end up being a danger to themselves, or just having their lives destroyed, all because of this perfectly safe drug. So,
well, one thing we read, I have a question for you. One of the things we read a lot is how much fentanyl is stopped at the border. But I always think that if you see something, it's probably just the tip of the iceberg. How much of that stuff is actually getting into the communities?
It depends on the community. So where I am, small town, Texas, is a town called Seguin, just east of San Antonio. And so we're on I-10, which is a shipping corridor, but most of the big drugs go past us on the interstate. They go up to Dallas, and then from Mexico, they go up to Dallas, they get redistributed, and then the actual use in Seguin is stuff that's redistributed coming back down from Dallas. Or from Austin. And so in Seguin, I've been there 6 months and I haven't had a single fentanyl encounter. We've found lots of marijuana, plenty of meth, the occasional bit of heroin or something else like that. I have never seen a positive test for fentanyl. Go 20 miles west into San Antonio, it's going to be a different story. And the thing about that fentanyl is you may not know if you've got it. If a guy's got pills, there are some fentanyl field tests, but until we send it into a lab, it could be mixed in with something else. They're cutting it in with other stuff and repressing the pills. So it is hard to tell. So these days, everybody's got fentanyl protection kits. So every officer is carrying like 5 mil gloves and masks and face masks and glasses. So if we get unidentified pills or powder, then, everybody masks up, gloves up before they start to do field tests on it. Nothing has popped since I've been around. I know they've got a couple, but with the national stats being what they are, you're exactly right. Anytime they're talking about how much they're catching at the border, that's always a very small percentage of what's coming across, and that is basically a Chinese industry. So China manufactures fentanyl and they ship it to the cartels in Mexico for the American illicit consumer, and that's huge business in China. So they're manufacturing that stuff by the gigaton and getting it into the country. We're
getting a lot of it out here with many deaths. And it's just amazing how little it takes to kill somebody. My dear friend and Rudy's wife, who passed away back in 2019, at the end of her battle with cancer, she was on fentanyl patches, and I was the one helping her use these things. So I had to glove up and all that stuff, because you can't get that stuff on you for anything.
Yeah, the dose, the medicinal dose is a handful of micrograms for a human being. Not like your 500 milligram tablet you're talking about.
Right. Can I ask you a question, sir?
Yeah.
Which one?
The officer.
William.
Have you ever read The Black Hand?
No, not familiar with that one.
That's a book about the mafia, and one guy actually leaves, and what's crazy is because I seen that dude, and when he tells him the time is the time that I saw him and I lived in the project. So what happened was I was reading, because they were telling people, don't read that book because they're going to kill you. So my friend was reading the book at work at the hospital. I said, hey, bro, whatever you do, keep that book low, because they're telling they're going to kill people. It even came out in the news. So what it was this guy, Renee, and he ended up telling on everybody. And then, because I lived in the Hazard Project, so when they were talking about that, I said, hey, I know this guy. So they used that as a teaching method and the police thing. And there's a thing. What do you call, Bill, when you go to school for criminal justice?
Criminal justice,
I think it's criminal justice.
criminology, or
Yeah, well,
criminal justice.
A girl I knew that lived upstairs went to criminal court. Dude, hey, Rudy, I saw you on the video. I said, what? So it's funny because we came on an American Me, so people got shot after the movie. Killed a few people.
Yeah.
And even after the movie, I was coming home and I got shot in the shoulder. But what it was, yeah, they were putting that as like a guideline to start understanding different things. But you know what was funny? When Colors came out, they said, the cops would say, hey, you owe me one. So it was dumb. Every time like a movie came out, they would use that, a cliche from that to act like you're getting put into a situation that you owe somebody. So it was funny. Like, what? So we would laugh. So, but yeah, it's, as far as that guy that goes to jail, because he gets his stuff. See, there's a lot of people that go to jail that are somebody, but when they're out here, they're nobody. So a lot of these guys go back just to be somebody because they are somebody in jail. And actually, when you come out here, you're really nothing. You're just another mostly homeless guy doing drugs. And so you're nothing. So when you're in prison, some of these guys have like, hey, you know what? So he's a good guy, or he's this, or we can depend on this. So some people do that, because I knew a lot of people that went to prison almost all their life. Like, I would see a dude for gets out of prison. I might even see him for maybe a month, and he's gone again. 10 years later, I see him again. What's up? See him for a month, gone again. So, but yeah, there's a book called The Black Hand, and a lot of the stuff that, yeah, I lived through it. I was like, what? I know this guy. So they use it as a training tool.
Might be interesting to read. These organized crime is always shifting. Right now, it's definitely the Mexican mafia stuff. So, see if I can find the equivalent book for that. And people keep telling me I need to see Colors. I haven't seen that yet, and I'm a movie buff, but yeah, don't generally watch a lot of cop movies, so I'll track it down.
And on the movie Colors, the Crips and the Bloods don't get along. We already know that. So then something happens, and all of a sudden the guy says, the white guy that's supposed to be in the Mexican gang says, fuck the Crips. So what it was honestly, that movie was something just to start trouble in the street. Because we already knew the Crips and Bloods didn't get along. So why does a Mexican guy have to say, fuck them? And so what happens is, it turns out in a circle, like say Mexicans are at the theater, or black people. So that's what starts problems. Because even when the Warriors came out, people were fighting and stuff. And I thought that was a good movie. I thought it was like, why would you go beat us? You know, if I'm dressed up in a costume, like a baseball player, hey, beat me up, because I shouldn't be.
Yeah, they say there used to be some of that in Seguin, and they all kind of beat each other up and ended up really running each other out of town. And so there's not a whole lot of that activity in our particular town anymore. More in San Antonio and elsewhere, but now it's mostly the drugs and the petty criminals and old retired gangsters.
There's another movie. It's funny because when I was a kid, it's called Over the Edge. Remember, Bill?
Oh, yeah.
And it's funny because I watched the movie, and white kids were going crazy, tearing up the town, like in rioting. I go, what do white kids have that are bad? It was funny because I didn't think white kids were a problem when I was a kid growing up. I thought it was just us Mexicans because we're poor and we did whatever we did, just free ice cream or whatever. So when I saw the movie Over the Edge, I was like, oh my God, I didn't know white people. Yes, it was funny. It was cool. Yeah, Over the Edge is a good movie too.
Good to know.
I like bad movies, so my favorite movies tend to be produced by Ed Wood and his ilk.
There's only so much time in life. Not enough time for bad movies.
Bad movies are awesome because they're exactly what they claim to be. A good movie can't be perfect. It'll always have something wrong with it. But a bad movie is always awful.
Well, that is a
always
philosophy.
telling the truth. Yes, it is.
That is a philosophy.
And can I ask us a question? What is an apologetic Christian? Because I think
it's not apologetic like apologizing. It's yeah. He said. I think you were out of the room when he mentioned it. It comes from the Greek word apologia, which means giving a defense.
Because
it's defending Christianity.
I'm kind of like an angry Christian because I get mad when people don't want to hear the word of God. And sometimes, one time a guy was Catholic and I said, "Hey, you're all wrong," because and he was a gangster. He got up and started walking away. I said, "Hey, bro, why are you letting the devil push you away? Why not just listen?" And the reason is because they got purgatory. And when honestly, something Jesus paid your rent for the rest of your life. Nobody. So that's what I meant by Jesus dying for sin. So there's no purgatory. There's no Mary. There's no anything. And I got a cross on my face. Got a tattoo of a cross. And I tell people the reason I got a tattoo is Peter denied Jesus 3 times. So you see me getting beat up, a guy with a cross on his face, and I'm yelling, "Mama, it's your boy." I'm just joking because.
Okay. So yeah, a couple callbacks there. Rudy's finally awake. But yeah. No, it's been. Oh, I moved. Sorry. Sorry, the table I have is breaking, and every time I move, it shakes. So. Oh, that's the thing I haven't replaced yet. I replaced the camera and the lights, and got the new microphone, and well, I've had that for a while, but yeah, now I got to replace the table. So
and then get a microphone for your co-host,
and get a separate microphone for my co-host. Yeah. Well, when we get to the new place, we'll have all sorts of great stuff. So. Originally, it's funny. Originally, I had planned to have this show be an in-person event, and have people over. I'd set up the living room as a studio, and we'd sit and we'd all chat together, and all that. And then COVID happened, and so I had to find a way to get guests, and it opened up to people around the world.
No offense, Bill. If you had invited me, I wouldn't have been able to fly there to see you.
Yeah,
but now
exactly
Joe Rogan invites me. I'm on an airplane, Betty.
Yeah.
I'm not
Joe yet. I'm not Joe yet. That's for sure.
You're not Joe yet. None of us are Joe yet.
Not yet. Yeah, most views I've ever had on a YouTube video is about 20,000. So.
20,000 views is pretty good.
That's really good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not bad. I had one the other day that hit 10,000. But yeah, so climbing tooth and nail, up there. But yeah, I gotta do some more serious marketing and stuff. I've actually got my day job helps people market their businesses through AI supported automated features for business services, and now that I have that, I need to use it. So yeah, I'm putting all that stuff together. So hopefully the show will be more widely accepted and watched by then. But yeah, I've because I do it all online now. I've had guests as far away as Israel, England, Finland. Costa Rica, yeah, just all over the place, and so it's really interesting.
And now Panama.
Very nice.
Yep. So yeah, so nobody needs to fly and come into the studio. It's all good, and I'm liking this service Riverside. I've only had problems with it twice. And once was because of the guests' poor internet connection. But But yeah. Although Alan, I can see that you're only 80% uploaded, so you're gonna have to leave your computer on.
Yeah, I know. I've actually done a couple now on Riverside, and yeah, I know. Just
welcome to the islands.
Well, I'm on an island in the Caribbean off the coast of Panama, and it is what it is. Our internet works pretty good from a download perspective. The speeds are reasonable. It's the upload speeds that are really, really tapped down that can cause some grief. I use Zoom for my podcast.
Okay.
And it works reasonably well. But there are even those times where it just sort of blips off. And, there was a risk I was going to have to call you this morning because they were shutting off power to part of the island.
Oh, wow. To
do some work. And sometimes they'll tell us, okay, it's this part of the island and not this part. And then it turns out to be the whole island. So there's always that risk that we're not going to be connected, not have electricity, run out of water, those types of things. Third world country problems.
Right. Yeah, I visited the Philippines years ago, and that's like 15, 20 years ago now. But this place we went to, Boracay, had every night it would start lightly raining, but it would be a warm rain, and the electricity would go out. So sun goes down, rain starts, electricity goes out. That was the that was how it went.
That's a great way to live.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind living there.
Unplug, start talking to people you care about, spend some time with them, and then go to bed at a reasonable hour.
Yeah, try new things. That was where I had Kopi Luwak coffee, the poop coffee.
Heard about that.
I've done some crazy things. I don't know that I would. I mean, I've done snake wine, I've done beluga, I've done a century egg, but I don't know if I would do poop coffee. I just don't know about that.
Well, I was there. It was available, and I'm like, I'll probably never have an opportunity to do this again. And so decided to take the plunge. It wasn't bad. It was pretty decent coffee. But yeah, because the civet eats the berry but can't digest the bean, and so the bean comes out whole and untouched. You just have to clean it, and then you make coffee from it. But because they only eat the best berries, so the theory is that they're pooping out the best coffee beans.
To each his own.
Yeah.
To each their own. Yes.
Because I can't digest corn, and I'm not going to sell it.
No.
But you have to ask yourself, with something like that, who was the first person to start picking up those beans and deciding they were going to go ahead and use them anyway?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that.
I love coffee. But I no, those beans are done. I'm sorry. I'm not.
Yeah, I gotta have my coffee. I part of why I chose I have a workspace in a shared office facility, and they have a big old coffee machine, and it's broken down twice in like the last few weeks. And it's just distressing when it happens because I've got to have it.
Well, you need. I have a kettle to heat the water, and I have a French press sitting right over here in my office.
I love my French press.
Yeah, if I want coffee anytime I want, I can make myself coffee right here.
Yeah.
Just as long as I've got electricity. That's the only
see now.
thing.
I was making cold brew for a while. And which is awesome. You don't need electricity. All you do is you steep the coffee grounds in it, and you leave it for a day, and then you have coffee. That was the problem.
What did you have the day before?
You have to keep up with it. You have to have two sets of containers so that when one's empty, you can start making the next batch. But the thing I liked about it is it's less acidic. So it doesn't give me tummy troubles. But
Other people's problems.
other people's problems. Yes, but yeah, and it's got more caffeine in it. So
I guess there's that.
the heat from brewing the coffee actually destroys some of the caffeine in it.
Okay.
Little trivia there. It'll probably never help anybody.
Yeah, they don't have trivia contests here. They've never done that. Well, they did it one time, and it was horrendous. But people trying to entertain themselves.
No, I was going to ask you, Alan, about your B&B, because I'm actually thinking about getting into the resort business out in Missouri. There's a place I'm looking at that's got a restaurant, an RV park, and a little motel and boat docks and all sorts of stuff like that.
It's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, a lot of moving parts. I can't do anything simply. I'm sorry, that doesn't work. But how do you enjoy it?
Well, I love it. My wife is the primary for that because I have my own stuff, but I'm there. In fact, she's going to go to Jazz Fest this weekend in Boquete and leave me there alone. And I've had as many as 15, and my staff was off, and I had to make breakfast for 15 people. Nice. And clean rooms and do all that. So sometimes you're everybody. So the fewer moving parts, the better right. It is. We're 6 bedrooms, each with their own shower. So that works out pretty well for people to have a private room. We have a full kitchen upstairs, and then we serve basic American style breakfast. So everything you'd want for breakfast. Okay. And so we're on a few of the booking engines out there, and so we're getting guest booking through those, and we have our own website so people can book through that, lulabb.com. And it's a beautiful Caribbean. Yeah, it's a beautiful Caribbean style house. We sit across the street from the water. So right now you have a water view from the front porch. There's a porch upstairs and a porch downstairs. All the rooms are like in a shotgun hallway. Each of them's air conditioned, hot water, Wi-Fi, those basic things that people want. And people come to the island. They'll go to their rooms, they sleep, they go to dinner. We recommend places. They have a good stay. We see them in the morning. Usually they'll come down and we'll have some conversations with them. We might see them other parts of the day, but for the most part, people are out and about doing tours and checking out the islands. So it's pretty cool. They come down and have a good time. We've just now been running it for about a year and a half. So we're getting our sea legs under us, if you will. It was a little challenging at first. We've learned a lot over the first year and a half because neither of us had really run anything like this. It had been a bed and breakfast for a long, long time. So there was that. So we did have some infrastructure here, but we pretty much had to figure everything out from scratch because the previous owners weren't around anymore. When we bought it, we spent about a year fixing it up. So we got it up to a standard, and now, basically trying to run it as best we can. And we're getting good reviews, and we're getting repeat clients. And so it's pretty cool.
Awesome.
Well done.
Yeah. But the fewer moving parts you have, I'm just going to tell you that, Bill, is the fewer moving parts, the better. Because every little bit of complexity that you add is just another thing that can go wrong. And so when you're trying to run, and in your case, those are multiple businesses, running a marina, running a resort, running a restaurant. I would never wish that on anybody. I was in the restaurant business for a while, and I just know, again, how many moving parts there are to a kitchen and how many things can go wrong and what happens when it does go wrong, and you start ruining your reputation for a restaurant. There's no easy clawback after that. So a lot of moving parts. Get good people, get your recipes, own the recipes so that if your good cook leaves, you still know how to make what they made. I've seen too many friends that are in that situation where they bring in a chef and everybody loves the chef, and then they have a falling out and the chef leaves, and it's like, okay, I can't serve you anything that's on the menu, so you're gonna have a hamburger. until he hires another chef, and then still doesn't have the recipes. But
Yeah.
so own your recipes, have control of how the business is run. But it's a lot of moving parts, so get ready for a challenge.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Any good resources out there that would help somebody looking to start a B&B or a restaurant or anything like that?
Well, there are some Facebook groups, but most of those are the gripe and bitch kind of rant and rave kind of people. It's like, I can't believe this guest did this, or and you're reading it and you're kind of like, well, I completely understand why a guest would do that. Why would you think they would do otherwise? Literally, some people believe that, okay, if you stay at their house and you stay there and they live in the property, that basically you would not watch TV after 10 o'clock, or that you're literally going to take the garbage to the dump rather than just leave it in the garbage can and let them clean up. Even after they charged you a $75 cleaning fee, they expect you to clean it. So there's a lot of crazy people out there trying to do this, but you're going to have crazy, crazy stories. Like, we had a guy who checked in. He'd come down here because one of these women was staying with us longer term, and he came down from Canada, and he wanted to stay. He booked a week, and he stayed for the week, but they had a falling out about midway through the first week, and so he went out and apparently found himself a woman that would take financial reward for services. Went back up to his room. She either drugged him or something. He passed out. Took all of his money.
Wow.
Which is about $1,300. He wanted to find this person, so he started putting out fillers for who this person might be. We had video surveillance, so we could see who it was, see the person. So, we started asking around, only to find out that this was a transvestite. So he got rolled by a transvestite in Lula's.
Wow.
That's not normal. That's a one-off story, but
and that's something you bring upon yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you're looking for somebody who will do whatever for financial gain, you're kind of asking for trouble, I think.
Yeah, they'll do whatever.
I just want to see the tuck-in job.
I don't want to see that. Why would you want to see that?
No, I don't know.
I just want to see. I want to see what messed him up. I want to see. Was it out there?
I think he was already messed up. I don't think that's the question. Anyway, it was kind of one of those things of he got to the end of his week, and we sort of said, this is probably a good time for you to move on to some other location, because we don't have space for you here.
Yeah, the
I
big
get
old
to have those
sign, we reserve
conversations.
the right.
Yeah. So I have some very specific jobs at Lula's. I carry the heavy stuff. I carry bags upstairs for the client and the guests. I carry water. And when someone does something that they don't need to be staying at Lula's anymore, I get to be the guy.
As it should be.
I pull my years of audit experience out.
The most hated man in the company.
Yes. 9 years out of 10.
Wow. That's amazing. Well, if it's just you and your wife, then that's really not a bad thing to be the most hated person in the company. So.
Well, yeah, that's going to be absolute. Like when I was making breakfast for people, I had 15 people I'm making breakfast, and I said, I'm sorry you guys are getting fourth string here, because we do have 2 staff that come in and run the kitchen and clean the rooms most of the time. But we just happened in this situation. We had told them, okay, they get to take their vacations off. So when there's a holiday, they get their days off instead of working on their holidays. And so we had made that decision, and then my wife had to make a quick trip back to the States. And they were off, and we were full, and we were over full, like at full capacity. 15 is as many as we can take. Wow. And so, it was a very busy morning for me. I actually got up about 5:30 in the morning and started prep work for breakfast that starts at 8. But I got through it. I got through it. No one complained. No one got food poisoning.
Yay!
Win-win.
Cool.
So that was fourth string. But
Yeah.
and so I definitely am. And then we have our dog Buster, who's our director of entertainment. He's
Okay.
also part-time director of security, that's shared with our other dog Angel. So yeah, it's like staying in our home, and people really do like the fact that it feels like they're in home, and they feel comfortable and have a nice place and know there's people there
Nice.
to take care of them.
Nice. Yeah, I've worked helped run a campground years ago now, but yeah, and it was a lot of fun and learned a lot about the food part of the business there. The director of the camp, his philosophy was keep their feet dry and their tummies full. And I think that's a pretty decent philosophy, really. That says about all of it.
Well, when the guests come down, my first word is, "How'd you sleep?" And
Right.
most of them will say, "I slept great," and I'll be like, "Good, the job's halfway done. Now go get some breakfast."
Yep.
Yeah, that's about the size of it.
That part's done. Now it's time for the breakfast. Yeah.
Yes.
Right in the title.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, it has been real and it's been fun, but we've gone almost the full 2 hours, and which is amazing. That's not something I've done in a while. So we'll come to a close. As I always do, I will ask the question: do you fine gentlemen have any last words for the fine people?
Mr. Misner? Oh, we may have lost him.
Uh-oh, Alan?
Well, yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
very good. Welcome back.
I'll let William go first.
Oh, I suppose my sister would throttle me if I didn't actually publicize the book. So if anybody's interested in a science fiction action story that gets into a little bit of the technical background behind AI and how it works, because they're interested in learning that, it's a good read. My female readers have all said it's very friendly to the female audience as well, despite being a sort of action techno thriller type of story. So Outsiders, by me, William Collier, any major online platform, especially ebooks. First volume's quite cheap. So check it out.
Okay, wccollier.com. The link is in the description. And Alan?
Well, I'll make sure that hits my Amazon today, William.
good.
So I'll have that shipped down.
Enjoy.
Here. You can actually get things pretty good. So I will definitely be reading it soon.
Paperback is expensive. Kindle is much cheaper.
Okay. Well, we actually have a book. We actually also run a book exchange at Lula, so locals
nice.
will read the books. So
Would love to get the paperback
play
down there. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll pony up the money. Okay. Yeah, but I guess the thing I would say is just realize that I grew up with a whole mindset of, okay, success in business is success in everything, and that's not true. You have to find happiness where you can get it. Hug your family, love your kids, treat everybody with kindness and love, and that's going to come back to you. It's always going to come back to you tenfold. So don't always be chasing the dollar. Chase the passion that you have in your life, because in the end, no one's going to write your obituary and tell them how many dollars you made and how rich you were. But they'll remember how you treated them and how you made them feel.
Yeah.
Oh, and Christianity is objectively true.
Okay.
It's beautiful true. I love Jesus. And if I take a transvestite name tucked in, do I get a discount?
No. I don't think
we
I
would
get
ask
into
that you
Lulu.
not bring another transvestite into the establishment.
You said another, like I took one before.
We do have a ban list. I'm just telling you, we've had to create a ban list. I never thought I would have to ban someone from Lula's, but we've got a couple
Welcome to
people
the
on
real
that list
world.
right now.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, it's terrible because you know what? There's some beautiful women, and then they tell you they're a boy, like, whoops.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not a
Stay
game
away
I have
from
to
the
worry
traps.
about.
No.
Not a game I have to worry about.
Spoken like a true
I stay away
gangster.
from- All right, I love you guys, and Jesus says to love each other, and I love you like Jesus wants us to love each other, and peace and love be with you. And may all your businesses thrive, and you become better than Elon Musk, whatever his name is.
Amen.
Actually, for William, I think we should be wishing that he doesn't have any business for your
Oh no,
work,
that would take all the fun out of it.
Yeah, yeah.
I had a roommate that was a cop. They need something. They need something every single day.
Sit in the truck for 11 hours? No.
You know, someone broke the dipstick. Someone broke the dipstick at the fire at the local service station, and you got 8 police cars there just because that's the only thing going on that night.
That's a fact.
I was looking at moving to one place, South Bend, Oregon, because there was some property up there that was pretty inexpensive, and it just looked beautiful. And I found out there are all of 2 police officers in the city.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
we do a little better than that. I think we've got 5 on duty.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, it was definitely Mayberry, but yeah. So, but anyway, well, thank you, gentlemen, for being on the show. Thank you, all viewers and listeners, for tuning in and sticking with us through the expanse. Go to wccollier.com and buy some books. Go to 40plusfitness.com and 40plusfitnesspodcast.com to find out more about what Alan does, and the resort website is lulabb.com. So take a trip down to a Panamanian island in the Caribbean. It sounds like
Panamanian paradise.
Panamanian paradise.
It is gorgeous here. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, everyone, be safe out there. Remember to wash your hands and stay tuned for the ending credits.
Safety third.
Thank you all for tuning in. This has been a presentation of Bald Spots Productions. I would like to thank my producer, my beloved mother, Eileen Hatch. I, of course, am your humble host.
I'd really like to thank my Ed McMahon, Rudy Corlew.
Yes.
I'd especially like to thank my special guests, Allan Misner and William Collier.
Support the show if you feel so led over on patreon.com. We're known as Bald Spots Pro. Don't you dare miss YWL Online. You can find us on Facebook and wherever fine podcasts are offered.
Tune in next time for a very special episode with Mary Jackson.
Be sure to like, comment, and share. Subscribe, follow, whatever it is you've got to do to kick that algorithm into gear and help us reach more people. If you or someone you know needs support now, call or text 988 or chat 988lifeline.org. 988 is the suicide and mental health crisis lifeline here in the States.